Temperatures. It is going to be a hot and humid one, and that's okay. I'm completely loving it. All right, let's see the pediatric issue. We did get some information yesterday, and it seems that this does have something to do with making the rounds, and that these pediatricians were being required to, I guess, probably rotate in on the weekends, ER duty. And that was a point of negotiation. I guess my take on it, and will be, Manaski's pulling out a report that WTR did last night, Eyewitness News, that dug into this a little bit more. But my point is, there's something I've learned over the years, and it is that sometimes concession, you're better off, you get more with concession than you do standing your ground. I think every situation you kind of have to assess and say, how will I be better off? What's best for my cause? And I really believe that the hospital would have been better off coming to some resolution with these doctors, these pediatricians, because where we are today is not a good position. And the doctors still get to continue on, and they have I don't know of anybody that I've spoken with that said, hey, I'm leaving these pediatricians. And, oh, by the way, they account for almost most of the pediatricians that are available in the area. So I find it interesting. You have the audio from UTR?
I do. This is from, I would imagine it ran at 10 and 11 as well, but this is WUTR last night at 6 o'clock, simulcast on WIBX. I'll skip the part that we all know here.
Yeah, all right, let's get right in.
Letter, a request by the group for the families to take their children to Golisano Hospital in Syracuse in order to stay under their care.
Physicians who are on staff here, on active medical staff, have a requirement to take ER backup call. A group of 10 private pediatricians have decided they would not like to be on that ER backup call. They brought that issue to the medical executive committee at the hospital, which is the decision-making board of the physicians in the hospital, and that request was declined. As a result, that group of 10 pediatricians have decided to withdraw privileges at Faxon St. Luke's Healthcare, which will mean that they will no longer be able to admit their own patients to this facility at this time.
Officials with Faxon St. Luke's and St. E's.
And then that's Mike Hoey. He goes on to say they still have pediatric care at the hospitals, which we had talked about yesterday.
That information is out. And so what do we think about that?
For who was the person they were speaking with?
It's got to be Mohawk Valley Health Systems, right?
I don't know who, but they were from Mohawk Valley Health.
Because the pediatricians have all decided, and this is what I'm getting. This is all kind of off the record stuff, which I guess I shouldn't be saying, but I think they've all agreed. Based on my conclusion, they've all agreed that they're not going to talk because none of them are talking. We've tried every single one. So, what do we think about that? I'm standing by my point. If I'm the hospital, I'm better off negotiating with these doctors than having this story exist.
I agree.
Bad move. I think it's a bad PR move by the hospital. And now they're left with just 3 or 4 pediatricians to handle their patients. And, I think it's a tough move.
So without divulging anything that's been said off the record, I did talk to 2 people who would talk on background. And both of them have said, and I think we said this last night when we were communicating outside of the broadcast, that there are several other issues that have transpired, and it is not just one single issue. The other thing that somebody has said, and this is to both sides of the argument. One, there are other pediatricians who are still participating, just not those particular 3 groups. And the other person with whom I had spoken said,
but it is the majority.
Keep in mind,
it's the majority of pediatricians
in this area
available in this area. This
Correct.
Is a blow. And I just think sometimes you got to count your losses and say, okay, we're in a bad negotiating position here, and we're going to be worse off if we hold our ground. I think it's a stupid move on the part of the hospital.
So, and to that end, somebody else had reiterated the point, and they said this in their letters, it is not just in pediatrics. And so their thought, this one particular person's thought was there are more defections to come. And so that is
This
a
is a
bigger issue. This is a snowballing thing.
There's a trend, it seems, around the country that this is what is going on. And I got to tell you, take and again, we've not spoken, none of these people have spoken, but take a Dr. Ritter, who I know and have known for many years. Dr. Ritter is, how old would you say Dr. Ritter is, Andrew?
Don't want to go down that road, but...
okay, but I say
25.
he's in his 50s.
Yeah.
He's in his 50s, to the point I would think I totally can relate, because I could see in my life, especially if I put that much into my profession, that much money and that much work, and then, it's keeping on top of issues as well into my profession over the years. There would come a point where I would like to say, I've earned the right to be this. And I can completely identify with that. I'm okay with that. I would feel the same way, I think, especially in that profession. Tim is on the line with a comment on the whole issue. Tim, good morning. You're on.
Good morning, Bill.
What do you think?
It's kind of hard, but you're putting all the blame on the hospital, and I think the doctors have to accept some of this responsibility. Sounds like to me what they want is 9 to 5 jobs. They gotta go.
Yeah, I think you're probably. I think they have practices, and I think you're probably right. And that's kind of what I was talking about. That once you get to be a certain point, it's like, hey, this is I want to. And I will also say, based on what I've gotten from people that are close to these doctors, is one of their gripes is that they feel they are responsible for taking care of their patients. And when they're taking care of the patients from the hospital that are not their patients, it is taking them away from being able to take care of the patients that they have. And I think that's a valid argument, too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, you interpret, you got to define backup call list for the hospital.
Right.
Does that, if a child comes in and needs a pediatrician, that they call one of these guys in?
I think this is ER duty. I think this is emergency room duty is what we're talking about here.
It sounded like to me that when he read the article there that it was a pediatric on call list, which I would interpret as if like obviously you don't have bone doctors at the emergency room.
Sure.
So if
right.
somebody comes in with a broken leg, that's the bone sticking out of the leg, you got to call in an orthopedic man.
Right.
That's the way I interpret it.
And these are general practitioners. These are pediatricians. So they deal when it comes to something special like that. They refer to a specialist as well. And I want you to know, Tim, I'm not completely putting all the blame on the hospital. What I said is, and Tim, we as just regular people who go to work every day make decisions every day. And over the years, Tim, we've put on a few years, and what have we learned? We've learned that sometimes you have to assess the situation, and maybe that decision that you feel you should be able to make is going to end up, you're going to be in a worse place if you make that, and you count your losses. And that's what I'm saying I thought the hospital should have done. I'm not saying they're in the right or the pediatricians are in the right or anybody's in the wrong. I just think it was a bad strategic PR move. And now they're stuck with this story, and the pediatricians went their way to Syracuse.
And the pediatricians have said they are still on call and still available for after hours, but for their patients only, not for the hospital's patients, and effective July 1st.
Do you understand at least my point, what I'm saying?
Yeah, yes, I do.
Yeah, that's all I'm...
I just see a lack of dedication on the doctor's
All right,
part.
okay. All right, Tim.
I guess that's
Thanks,
one opinion. Just two quick thoughts. On what Christine said. Right, they do have some on-call responsibilities for their own patients, and as you said, that would take them away if they've got to run over to this hospital or that one. I could see that taking away.
If I have a pediatrician, I want my pediatrician, and that's where I have signed up. This is where we take our child. We've been accepted. I want to make sure that that doctor's going to be able to take care of my child. And if they're saying that, well, we can't always because we're taking care of other patients that aren't ours, I can understand that argument. I really can understand both sides. I just think in the end of the day, listen, someone has the advantage in most of these back and forths. Somebody has the advantage, and I think the advantage was with the doctors in terms of strategy, in terms of their decision, and I think that the hospital should have cut its losses. And Again, that's just really a PR issue. That's all that is for me. I just think they're stuck with this story and trying now to spin it to make it look like the doctors are in the wrong.
Well, and it doesn't help when you say this is a group of just 10 doctors who blah, 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 because just 10 doctors represents the majority of pediatric patients in
represents
this area.
Two-thirds of the pediatricians. Sue is on the hospital. Go ahead.
Good morning. I'm a former worker in the ER at Mohawk Valley Health Center.
Okay.
And have seen firsthand what some of these pediatricians have pulled, trying to get them to come in to see patients, have them come in to admit patients. That unfortunately, there's a lot of children out there that don't have.
So you think this is well, again, you've been there, and you believe that this is the kids that are getting hurt are the ones that don't have the parents who can afford to go to the best pediatricians. They're going to ER and they're on services.
Bottom line, yes.
Okay.
These pediatricians, you don't know how many times call lists would go up on weekends. You'd get nasty phone calls back from the doctors. I'm not on call this weekend. Well, that's not the ER's fault. It's the office's fault. They gave us the call list and who's on call. If you made switches, you were supposed to let the ER know. You don't know unless you work in the trenches.
Right.
And
by the way, can I just say this? We all, Sue, have horrible ER stories to talk about. Sitting there for 8 hours. Let me just finish this. And whatever the reason is for that, it takes nothing away from the amazing dedication of the doctors and nurses in that ER. And I feel for these people because when we're all sitting out in that waiting room, like, what is wrong with you people? Why am I still waiting? You guys are working your tails off in there and in some cases, saving lives. So you don't know it till you've lived it, and you've lived it, right?
Lived it. I've seen it all. I thought I saw it all, but I'm still hearing horror stories. But it's a sad thing. And those nurses, I'm telling you, they try their darndest to get doctors to come in and see patients. And it's such a long story. There are, some of the physicians refuse, they figure the patient can be seen by a nurse practitioner or a PA.
Yeah.
So they make those patients, if that nurse practitioner or PA is being backlogged by seeing all types of patients, what is the doctor doing? They don't.
So can I ask you a question? What is that standard like in Syracuse, Albany, New York City, Buffalo, where if I had my own practice, if I was a pediatrician or whatever, but I had my own practice, that I would be on an on-call log or on-call duty for the emergency room? Is that a standard thing? I'm not an employee of the hospital. I have my own thing going.
Well, but they're affiliated with the hospital.
Privileges at the hospital.
Yeah.
And so
right.
that
I
you
have
can perform-
privileges there, but I don't get it. I'm not a.
Let Sue answer that. Yeah. She'll explain that, but it's part of the affiliation.
Well, it's my understanding, like at St. Elizabeth, I haven't worked there, and I don't know how their call list goes, but it's my understanding that they have the residents there do bulk admissions there. I don't know how often you see your own physician there.
Yeah.
St. Luke's, it is a call list, and some of the doctors, like family physicians and whatnot, have agreed to go to what is called the hospitalist program. So a lot of people that go to an emergency room, their private physician does not admit them, doesn't come in to see the patient. It's all done by a hospitalist.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering if this group of doctors that don't have privilege anymore wanted the hospital to get a pediatric hospitalist to take call for their admissions.
And Sue, are you disagreeing with me when I say, listen, and they've been going, but this apparently has been going on for a long time, this argument back and forth between the pediatricians and doctors and the hospital. My only point has been, I think the hospital was in a no-win situation. I think they'd have been better off avoiding the story. Do you agree with that, or you disagree with me there?
Yeah, I was shocked. I've talked to some people. I go, what is going on now? Because when I heard this, I know what that poor emergency room is probably feeling. Yeah. And I'm wondering now, are these doctors I wonder, do they not have to take call for their patients? What's going to happen when their patients get admitted in Syracuse? Are
They're
they gonna
still
be-
on call. They're still on call. They said that they will remain on call for their
For
patients.
their patients, but
Yeah, but
not at the Mohawk Valley hospitals.
But they're on call for their patients. But if they don't have admitting privileges, they're not going to be admitting their patients to the Mohawk Valley Health
No,
Center.
Right, they're
they
admitting
would
them
be
to
at
Golisano.
Golisano.
Yeah, but what Sue is saying is true. So they're saying, I don't want to be on call in Utica, but now I'm going to refer you to Syracuse. So if there's an emergency, now I have to go to Syracuse.
But they're saying we're handling our patients and not everybody else. And this is a touchy one. There's no doubt about it. It's a touchy one, and they have made the decision. Both sides have made the decision, and ultimately, Sue, who gets to lose here? We all end up stuck in the middle of this by default, unfortunately.
For patients, and unfortunately, it's going to affect some of the low income people.
Yeah.
And you can't imagine how many people use ambulance services to go to the emergency room for pediatrics. I'm just wondering if the local ambulance services are going to have to drive these people out to Syracuse now.
And in addition, there's another issue here. Is I wonder what financial loss this could mean to the hospital here. Because if now all of these, bulk of these patients from these pediatricians are being sent to Syracuse, that will be loss of income for the hospital,
That is
our
huge.
hospital. That's a big move. And all right, interesting. And by the way, Sue, I just want to say for the record, I'm sure you guys have this all the time, but people like me and everybody else sitting out in that waiting room of the ER, and we get so frustrated. And the only people we get to vent to are the nurses, and you guys have to take the crap from people like us. And for that, I apologize.
So thank you for what
I
you
beg
do.
for it's not only the nurses that take the crap. You talk to the unit receptionist.
Absolutely, yeah. They're the first line of defense there. There's no doubt about it. So I'm not really bad, honestly, but I've seen some people really mean, and they're frustrated. I understand, but it's tough to be hammering the receptionists and the nurses and all those. They're just trying to do their job there. So. All right, Sue. I love it when you call in and give us your take because you have such knowledge there.
Okay, I want to win a contest next. Okay.
All right. All right. All right. Well.